Shalom Aleichem. Mishneh Torah לרבנו הגדול, הרמב"ם, זיכרונו לברכה, הלכות תלמוד תורה, פרק ג', הלכה י"א, I believe. I will share the screen with you here. Rambam states, Ma'ala gadolahi, למי שהוא מתפרנס ממעשה ידו. It is very praiseworthy and therefore advised for a person to be able to support themselves by his own effort, his own work. Umidat hasidim horishonim. And this is how in the early generations of the Chachamim, says the Rambam, hasidim rishonim is an expression that Rambam uses frequently to refer to Tanaim and even earlier generations, the generations of the Zugoth, etc. And Rambam also mentioned in Perek Aleph, Halachat Taif, Rambam states, Gedolei Chachmei Yisrael hayu mehem chotovei itzim umehem shoavei mayim. So here Rambam points out in Perek Aleph that some of the well-known Chachamim mentioned in the Mishneh were known to work in various trades. And nevertheless, they studied Torah day and night, except for those hours where they had to work. So Rambam mentions this over there in Perek Aleph in order to emphasize the fact that all people are hayav to study Torah, just no matter what their financial circumstance. As Rambam said there in Perek Aleph, Halacha Heth, Kol ish mi Yisrael hayav b'thamud Torah ben ani ben ashir. So now returning to Perek Gimel, Rambam says that it is a ma'ala gadola. It is considered very proper and correct that a person be able to support themselves. Umidat hasidim horishonim hi uvazeh zocheh lechol kavod v'tova sheba'olam hazeh u'la'olam haba. And a person who follows this path in this world will be rewarded in this world and the world to come. Shene'emar, as it says in Tehillim, Yiri'a kapecha ki tochel ashrecha v'tov lach. Literally, you shall eat, you shall consume that which you earned by the toil of your hands. Ashrecha, and this be good for you, v'tov lach. And Chachamim would doresh ashrecha ba'olam hazeh, says Rambam, v'tov lach ba'olam haba. Shekulo tov. This is a continuation of what Rambam stated in the previous halacha here in Perek Gimel, where he spoke at length about not demanding that others or that the public support one in order that person be able to study Torah. It is also true, excuse me, it is also true that many poskim took issue with the Rambam on this point. We won't go into that entire discussion now, but it does need to be stated that this opinion and these statements of Rambam are not agreed to, and certainly not in their entirety by all. So we continue now. Halakha Yod Beth. Rambam says, "En divrei Torah mitkayimim b'mi shemerapeh asmo alehem." You will not find a person. It is impossible to find a person who takes a very lackadaisical, laid-back attitude towards the study of Torah, and yet somehow is a great scholar. And Rambam uses the term here mitkayimim, which is very relevant, because it is one thing to study Torah, let's say for the first time, to study something, and then it's a different matter whether that person has the dedication and applies himself in such a way that he is mishanen, he repeats, he goes over, he's hozer on what he studied, so that he remembers. So it might be that a person enjoys learning and studies something, but is not really disciplined and dedicated to that extent that he sticks to a certain program, that he goes over what he has studied, and in general is utilizing his time in the correct way. And therefore, if a person takes things easy and doesn't feel driven when it comes to the study of Torah, then that person will not succeed. This is not the way to achieve true understanding and knowledge and connection with the Torah and with Hashem. The Torah will not be found amongst those who live a very luxurious lifestyle, idun, they pamper themselves, people who are constantly involved in eating and drinking. The Torah is to be found only with those literally who kill themselves for the Torah, over the Torah. This is obviously an example of hyperbole, but the meaning is plain, that a person is completely dedicated to the study of Torah and pushes himself hard, and does not only not pamper himself, he acts in the opposite manner. Does not sleep very much, does not allow his eyelids to be shut for terribly long. In other words, such a person studies at night, as we're about to discuss in a moment, and during the day, and does not find time for laying about and taking things easy. It is true, should be added, that it is true that a person does need sometimes to take a break. Now, this varies from person to person. We have many histories and testimonies of people from, shall we say, from Europe 100 years ago and before, of great Rabbanim who went during the summer vacation to a certain spa city or something of the sort for a time. That is not to be considered improper. It is necessary to rest as well as required. But to lead a hedonistic lifestyle and to focus on such things, as a rule, is not the way of the Torah. And therefore, Rambam continues and says, "Amaru Hachamim derech remez." Chachamim stated as follows, based on the pasuk in Bamidbar: "Zot haTorah, Adam ki yamut ba'ohel." The pasuk there, of course, is discussing the parasha. There, the parasha there is discussing Tumath Met, and speaks about a person who, a corpse that is found inside a tent, and the halachic ramifications of Tuma and Tahara with regards to that. Chazal Doresh on this pasuk, En haTorah mitkayemet ela b'mi shememit asmo b'ohalei chokhmah. In other words, if you want Torah, Zot haTorah, Adam ki yamut b'ohel. A person has to be willing, as it were, figuratively, to kill himself over the Torah, which means to be focused and motivated, and to know that the Torah is not easily purchased. Hithrapitha b'yom Torah sar kehocha. Pasuk in Mishneh. In other words, if you relax your hand in yourself too much, you will not be able to, you will not be ready and able to do that which is necessary. You will not have the koach to do what you need to do when the time comes. That's what the pasuk basically means. So you have to be constantly, as shall we say, a military force has to be constantly trained and engaged in exercising and training and rehearsing what it will do when the time comes, when they are called upon to act. And only in such a fashion can a military force be effective. The same is true of Torah. One has to be constantly prepared, which means to be constantly studying and revising and not to let up. Furthermore, it says in Kohelet, Af chokhmati amradali, chokhma shelamati ba'af amradali. In other words, the pasuk here is being explained to mean af. The word af can also mean anger. So even though I caused those who were teaching me Torah to be angry at me because I asked lots of questions, or because I didn't understand immediately what I was being taught, but nevertheless I persevered. Av chokhmati amradali, that chokhmah eventually stood me in good stead. Chokhmah shelamati ba'af amradali. This can, of course, also be connected to the Mishneh in Masechet Avot. Enha Baishan Lamed. A person who is overly shy will not ask a question that he doesn't really understand. He will not really learn. He will not fully understand, and that is self-defeating. Further, Rambam says, this is now Halacha Yod Daled, you can see on the screen. In other books, it's still Halacha Yod Beth. Amaru Hachamim, Barif Karutha. It is as if drawn up and written up in some kind of contract or treaty. It is a fact, an essential, fundamental fact. Shekol hayoveh b'talmudo b'vet haKnesset lo b'mhirahu mishakeach. A person who studies literally in the Bet Knesset, this probably also includes a Bet Midrash, lo b'mhirahu mishakeach. He will not forget so easily. The idea behind this is apparently that in the Bet Knesset, the Bet Midrash, a person will have peace and quiet, as opposed to perhaps at home. In his home, a person may have lots of distractions, noise, the children, what have you, the neighbors. Keep in mind that people used to live usually lived in one room, one large room. Their abode was one large room, essentially, with a kind of raised area in one corner, which is perhaps where some of the beds were, and it was not a calm or very practical place to study Torah, shall we say? Not usually, or to pray, to daven. Although we do find references for instance, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, it says that Rabbi Yonah used to daven the Shemona Esrei aloud in his home, so that the members of his household would hear the words of the Shemona Esrei and learn them. But generally, that was not the ideal place for such things. So that's number one. A person should try and find a place that is conducive to the study of Torah in terms of practicalities, in terms of quiet and lack of distractions. And it is possible, by the way, that this is why the term Bet Knesset was used before. Because here Rambam says, these are of course explicit statements of the Chachamim. He who studies Torah literally alone, or hidden from view, as it were, from others, Machkim, shall become very wise. The Pasuk says that Chokhmah is to be found with the Sinu'im, with the modest, with the quiet, with those who are nechba'im el kelim, those who are not place themselves front and center stage for everyone to see or to hear. And this could be why Bet Knesset was mentioned, which is not the normal place you would think, because there usually was a clear distinction between Bet HaKnesset and Bet HaMidrash. The Bet Midrash was a place where Hachamim and their Talmidim and their students met and studied Torah. Whereas the Bet HaKnesset was a place which was entirely for tefillah and kriyat Torah b'tzibur, for reading the Torah in public, so therefore you had a large number of people usually in the Bet Knesset. It was not a quiet or a solitary place normally, not when it was in use, but the rest of the time it was exactly that. It was a solitary, quiet place. Because it was only when the Sibur got together, when the people came for the tefillot, for the various tefillot, for Kriyat Torah, that you would have many people there. Otherwise, often it was probably deserted, or nearly so. And it could be this is why Bet Knesset was mentioned in that previous statement of the Chachamim that Rambam claims, quotes. In other words, it's connected to the statement, the following statement, the one that follows, speaking about Kol HaYareh B'Talmudo B'Sin'ah, in a solitary, hidden way. away from prying eyes, away from other people. And it could be that the Beit HaKnesset is exactly the place to do this, because normally it's empty. וכל המשמיע קולו בשעת תלמודו מתקיים בידו. He who studies aloud, in other words, reads the words that he is studying, that he's learning aloud to himself, Talmudo mitkayem biyado. This is an aid in remembering and recalling that which one studies. It helps for the material being learned to be absorbed. Aval hakore belahash, he who reads without being mashmi'a, his voice, without reading aloud, bimhera shocheach, he will more readily forget. So halakha tetwa, as you can see on the screen here, or in the Gimel, Rambam continues. Here, the topic is studying Torah at night. And there's a connection between this statement and the previous statements, as we shall see. As Rambam said also in Perek Aleph, as we mentioned, that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is essentially a constant mitzvah, and a person should study Torah day and night, at least part of the day and part of the night. En adam lamed rov chochmato ela balayla. The fact is, generally, a person who wishes to dedicate themselves to the study of the Torah you will find that such people study quite a serious proportion of their studies at night. Yizahir b'chol, and such, therefore Rambam says, lefichach, therefore, Misha Rasal Lizkoth b'chefer HaTorah. Again, this parak, if you recall, is talking about Misha Rasal Lizkoth b'chitra HaTorah, as this parak, this chapter began. B'shlosha ketharim nichteru Yisrael. There are three ketharim, three crowns, three types of status and honor in the Jewish within the Jewish people's unique civilization. One is Torah, the other is Kehuna, and the third is Malchut. And this perek is directed towards those who wish to be Zochel Cheter Shel Torah, as Rambam says here. In other words, people who have decided to dedicate themselves to the study of Torah, which is a lifelong pursuit. Rambam says, Lefichach, Misha Rasa Lizkoth b'cheter HaTorah, Yizaher b'chol leloto. He should be very careful with his time, particularly with his evenings. V'lo ya'abed afilu ahat mehen b'shena v'achila u'shtiya v'siha v'chayoseh b'hen, and will not fritter away his nights in all manner of activities, whether it is eating, sleeping, or schmoozing with people. Ela b'talmud Torah v'divrei chochmah. Such a person will do his utmost to make the best use of every night. Now you might ask, why the night? And again, I think the answer is that the nighttime is usually quieter than the daytime. That which we said previously about one's home, it's often tumultuous and distracting and noisy and what have you. At night, this often will not be the case. A person will be able perhaps to study even in their home at night. The night is by definition quiet, usually quieter, and there are fewer distractions, and a person can dedicate themselves to the study of Torah. There is also the statement of Abba bin Yamin in Masechet Berachot in Talmud Bavli in the first chapter, speaking about tefillah at night. There, Abba bin Yamin, who's a very mysterious individual, we do not know much about him. My understanding is that he was in a fairly early period. It states that he was always makpid, that he would pray literally close to his bed, or close, not necessarily physically, but in terms of time. Now, there are various perushim on that statement, but one of the perushim, which is to be found in the Geonim, is that he would pray tefillat arvif at night before going to sleep. And the explanation for that is, again, because it's quiet. In other words, it was possible to meditate, to prepare oneself for tefillah in a serious way without distraction. So according to that perush, it's the idea is similar to what we are reading here. Rambam continues, Amaru hachamim, en goruna shel Torah ela laila. In other words, the way to gather Torah, to create, as it were, Torah wealth, in the same way that a person gathers together his grain from his fields to the goren, the place where the grain is gathered. En goruna shel Torah ela laila. The Torah is gathered together and amassed at night, usually. Shene'emar Qumi Roni Valayla, as the pasuk is also explained here. Pasuk in Echad Qumi Roni Valayla. Get up, rise up early, and literally make your voice heard, or cry out, or it can also be understood as it is being understood here. Open your mouth with Torah at night, so one can go to sleep early and get up early, or one can go to sleep later. But the night is an important time for the study of Torah. V'chol ha'osek b'Torah b'layla, says Rambam, hut shel ha'chesed yimshach alo b'yom. In other words, there will be a positive hashgacha, providence, attached to that which he does during the day. Shene'emar yomam yisawa Adonai hasdo uvalayla shiro imi tefillah le'el hayai. So balayla shiro imi is being understood here, is being midrash as a reference to the Torah, which is also referred to as a shira, as we know. And then Hashem yisawa Adonai hasdo during the day. And Rambam says further, V'chol bayit she'en divrei Torah nishma'im bo balayla, a house where the words of Torah are not heard at night, esh ochalto. In other words, literally will be consumed with fire, which is explained by many mefarshim to mean that he will not have, such a person will not be zocher to have a calm and a calm and satisfactory domestic state of affairs in his home. And the homes of Talmidei Chachamim should be homes of domestic tranquility, and not arguments and strife, as Rambam mentions in Hilchot Bia Perek of Aleph. We continue. Halakha Tel Zayin, or Yod Gimel still. Ki devar Adonai baza, says this pasuk in Bamidbar. What does that mean? A person who treats the Torah with disdain. Ki devar Adonai baza. Shilo, ze shelo hishgiach al divrei Torah kol ikar. This refers to a person who has such has such contempt for the Torah that he takes no notice of it. And therefore he doesn't study the Torah and doesn't listen to shiurim, doesn't make any effort. That is a person, such a person is treating the Torah with contempt. Similar to a person who is given a unique and priceless gift and receives it and shoves it into a drawer somewhere and never looks at it again. We're not sick, a person who has the capability and the wherewithal, his circumstances such that he is able to study Torah, and yet does not do so. We're not sick. Or a person who did at one point in his life study Torah, but then turned his back on the Torah later. And decided that that's enough Torah for me, or I couldn't be bothered any longer with this. That too is considered to be someone who treats the Torah with disdain. Should be mentioned here that the Torah is essentially different, fundamentally different from all other types of chokhmah, all other avenues of study, of chokhmah, of wisdom. Most types of chokhmah, most areas of study that a person might undertake are finite. Is not something that you can study forever. You study what there is to study, and even though it may be a lot, but there is an end to it. It's not necessarily an ongoing and unending and boundless endeavor. But the Torah is not so. The Torah is without end. One will always find and notice and understand and see new things in what one is studying in the Torah, even though one may have studied that thing many times previously. This is something that all serious Talmidei Chachamim will attest to. Chazal also make this statement. They say, "En Efshar levet midrash belo hidush." It is impossible for Talmidei Chachamim to gather together and discuss this or that aspect of the Torah, and not to come up with some new insight or understanding. This is the way of the Torah. This is how it is designed. This is how it is meant to be. So by definition, it is a lifelong pursuit. And the more one applies oneself to the Torah, the more one will understand. One's understanding is constantly growing and becoming more finely tuned and deeper. Rambam continues now, end of the chapter. Halacha Yud Zayin Ostir Yud Gimel Omeru Hachamim Kol HaMevatel Et HaTorah Me'osher. He who slacks and allows himself to be slack with regards to the study of Torah Me'osher, when his financial situation is more than sufficient. So that is not the reason for his slackness. So for Levatala Me'oni, he eventually will find himself having to set aside the study of Torah because he simply will not have the time, because he will have to do other things in order to keep body and soul together, to make some money. Sofo levatala me'oni. וכל המקיים את התורה מעוני, סופו לקיימה מעושר. This is a Mishneh Masechet Avot, and the meaning is fairly clear, as Rambam points out there in his Pirush on the Mishnah. If a person, nevertheless, despite difficulties and restraint and constraints, studies Torah even when his situation is not very not an easy one financially, he will be rewarded so that he will be able to study Torah b'rewaha. In other words, without financial concerns, without distractions. He will find himself able to do so. Rambam says this is mefurash in the Torah. What Chazal say, Harei hu omer, Tachat asher lo avavta et Adonai Elohecha b'simcha u'b'tuv levav mirov kol. Because when you were able to worship and serve Hashem b'simcha u'b'tuv levav, easily and readily, because you had everything that you required, mirov kol, you chose not to do so. Therefore, you shall find yourself having to serve your enemies, to work for them, and spend your time doing the opposite. Sometimes a person, when he's young, perhaps needs to overcome many obstacles in order to study the Torah. But eventually, Hashem will help this person if he's truly dedicated to the Torah. That a person will be able to study Torah and lead his life in such a way that it will be, the study of Torah will be able to be a fixed part of his existence.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Regarding what we learned before regarding how a true Talmid Chacham will always find chidushim in Torah.
Yes.
Would the rabbi connect this also to the area of halachic innovation? That the more one is a serious scholar, the more one will find ways of being mechadesh in the area of psikat halacha?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question as you word it. Proper study of Torah will very frequently, as a matter of course, have halachic ramifications. Now you might say, well, that is true if you're studying a Mishnah or a Baraitha, Tosefta, or a Gemara, but not if you're studying, shall we say, Tanakh. You might think so, but that too would be a mistake, because it is often the case that even when studying Tanakh, one can see things that have a bearing upon various discussions and areas of the Torah which may, at first glance, seem unrelated, but in fact there might be a connection. And So therefore, much of what one studies in the Torah will somehow be connected to halakha or psikat halakha. But even when this is not so, what I was referring to earlier was not necessarily a new understanding or a new explanation, which therefore results in a different psak halakha. That may be the case, but it also equally refers to simply understanding various things more profoundly, more correctly. It may not have an immediate impact on some halachic discussion, but the more one understands anything in the Torah, it will eventually have some impact. It will somehow influence how one sees how one understands other things within the Torah. As I remember, Hagon Rav Yaakov Moshe Harlap Zitzal, one of the early Talmudim of Rabbeinu Rav Kook. When Rav Kook came to Eretz Yisrael, he was originally in Yafo, and Rav Harlap was in Yerushalayim. And to get to know Rav Kook and to visit him, he used to travel from Yerushalayim to Yafo, which is not the same as traveling today from Yerushalayim to Yafo. It was basically a whole day in some kind of a cart, and it was probably not the most pleasant and comfortable ride either. But he used to go and visit Rav Kook, and he became a very, very, very close Talmid of and follower and later an expounder of Rav Kook's teachings, together with his own insights and understandings. We have many books from Rav Harlap. At any rate, Rav Harlap, in his Haskama to the first volume of the Talmud Bavli with Halacha Berura that Rav Kook wrote, in which he quotes the various posukim on the daf, so that you can see what the posukim wrote as you are learning the Sugya and the Talmud. Rav Harlap writes there a statement which I'm, if I'm quoting it accurately, I hope I am precisely. He says, "Iyaf shala amod al davar ehad b'Torah im lo omdim al kol Torah kula." You cannot really understand anything in the Torah, even any particular topic or issue in the Torah, will not be fully, comprehensively understood if you do not see the entire Torah. If you're not aware and familiar with the entire Torah, these things go together. The more one has a breadth of knowledge and understanding and experience with the various parts of the Torah and the various mikza'ot of the Torah, the various types of Talmud Torah, Mikra, Mishneh, Talmud, Midrash, Halacha, etc. The more one's understanding will be broadened and deepened. So the very act of studying Torah, no matter what you're studying at this moment, is adding to your fund of knowledge, of understanding and wisdom in Torah. Without necessarily having a direct impact at this moment that you can perceive on some halachic discussion. All right, we shall begin the next perek, chapter 4. Rambam states, perek halacha aleph. Yes.
I believe we already covered the first few halachot in this perek, another shiur.
We may have. I don't recall what shiur it was right now, but I suggest we just continue anyhow. If for no other reason, Hashem shinun. All right. En melamedim divrei Torah, ela letalmid harun. Torah cannot be taught to just anybody. The person has to be harun, has to be kasher. Na'eh b'ma'aso. We have to see that his behavior, his general disposition is what we would call kasher, proper, and as it should be. Or letham, or someone whom at this moment we do not necessarily know very well, but we have reason to assume that he's kasher. Aval im haya holech v'derech lo tova. But if we see a person who is clearly not behaving correctly, in other words, his general choices in life on a day-to-day basis are not as they should be. First, he has to be straightened out, as it were, and trained how to behave, how one should act, and he has to be checked out. We have to see that this process is in fact working. And only then can he be brought into the Bet Midrash and be taught Torah. Amaru Hachamim stated, Kol Hashoneh Lethamid She'eno Chacham, he who teaches Torah, and this generally refers to Torah She'Ba'al Peh, and that is also the meaning of the word Shoneh. Lishnot is to teach by Ba'al Peh, and by repetition. Kol Hashoneh Lethamid She'eno Chacham, Ke'ilu Zarak Even Lemerkulis. In other words, this is this shows a great lack of understanding and in fact lack of respect towards the Torah. In other words, as if the Torah is something you can just hand over to anybody, no matter what this receptacle into which we're pouring this Torah, what it might be. That's not so. Merkulis is the Jewish mispronunciation of the Roman, the name of the Roman god Mercury, which had to do with prosperity in the Roman cosmology and pantheon, and stones were thrown at an idol of this god. Shneimar, as the pasuk states, Kisrov Even b'margema ken noten lichsil kavod. The kavod is Torah. When kavod is Torah, kavod refers to the Torah. Shneimar kavod hachamim inhalu. True honor and glory will be achieved by hachamim. Hachamim will be nohel, will inherit chokhmah, not because they wield political power or because they have money. These are reasons why other people might be respected, but hachamim are not respected for that reason. They're respected because of the chokhmah itself, because people who understand and appreciate their chokhmah. So this is with regards to Talmud, that a person has to be worthy of receiving Torah. We shall stop here for today. Hayu beruchim, hizku v'yames levavchem, kol hameyahalim l'Adonai.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.